when you are, sir.
We're going to get you quick.
All right. If I could call to order the meeting, April 9th, 2015 meeting of the Stoughton School Building Committee. And item 1 on the agenda is public participation, which is, we discussed, for people watching more than people in the room, because there's nobody in the room that would have an interest in this, it seems. We were going to set aside the first 10 minutes of each meeting for public participation. If anybody watching this process and these the meetings of the high school building committee would like to come, ask questions, and to offer input more than anything else, because we're looking for that. We welcome you to come at the beginning of the meeting. We'll be meeting the third Thursday? Is it? What is it? Second Thursday? Second Thursday each month at 5 o'clock. But hearing nobody, move to the second item on the agenda and passing it off, if I can, to Mr. Bonfatti.
Okay, thank you. So we have sent in the designer selection, as everyone knows. I think we received the proposals from the architects, which we'll get into a little more detail. But excuse me, I'm a little.
I don't know, but he is
Otherwise,
real.
I'll try not to breathe.
Do you have a mic?
No, I don't.
Oh,
Sorry.
here, why don't you, you'll be talking more than me.
Well, he's,
We can put about
Sorry
6 on
about
you
that.
if you want.
Hey, you want to take mine, Tim?
I should know this routine since I've done it enough.
Do you need another one?
It's up at the top.
So the designer selection panel is meeting on April 21st. We sent in the Stoughton representatives today. So Mike and Dr. Rizzi are on the committee from this group, and then the school committee representative is, and I forgot to bring
Her name is
Katie
Katie Pena Akonian? Anokian.
Anoki,
Oh, I know her. Okay.
who is the school committee representative.
it was fast.
And
That was
I,
quick.
I did reach out to Katie, and she
Oh,
will be
great.
meeting with us tomorrow at the working group meeting, and I will give her her package.
Yeah. So that had to go in today to keep the April 21st meeting date, and that was confirmed by the MSBA that we are on for April 21st. We're going to talk a little bit about, they got a letter to the members of the designer, the Stoughton local members of the designer selection panel, which we can talk through sort of if anyone has any questions. I know Dom
Well,
also has some.
What I did was I
Copies
sent
of
the electronic version to your email addresses, to you, Michael, and to you, Dr. Rizzi. This is, and I've got a few things just to hand out. I will give Katie hers tomorrow. Here's Dr. Rizzi. And this is the procedure for the designer selection. And what's important is on the rear of this is a document where you, after you read this, you sign to say that you understand the process and the procedures. If you could send that back to me, scan it back to me, and I'll send it to the MSBA for their records.
Yeah, give it to you tomorrow.
You can give it to me tomorrow as well.
Okay.
In fact, we'll probably collect all 3
Yep,
signatures.
probably do that. Just to give a quick update, we received 11 submissions for the designer selection. What I'm going to do is pass to you sort of a synopsis of each architectural firm and some of their school experiences. I'll just spread it out this way. And behind it will be also, if there's more needed, I'll leave them right here. Behind it is also a sub-consultant matrix that will be part of the review. Those who are appointees of the designer selection process, Dr. Rizzi, Michael,
No, I have mine.
We have a couple down here.
Yep, there should be plenty. Yes. It's just for your information right now.
Do you have one?
Myself and Compass, we're going through also, and I'm going to pass this to Dr. Rizzi and to Michael, and I can send out a copy. But just so, and I don't know where the camera is, just so you can see that we're going through basically a reference check with this for each And on that, it correlates to that synopsis that I gave you, which are projects that are of similar size or types that we're looking at. So having a little issues with some of the people responding back to me. I've got emails in, I've got, and you can see on your copies, Dr. Rizzi and Michael, is that where I've contacted them, but I have not heard back, and I'm still coming through that. And in some ways, I'm also reaching out to others that I know, not the particular person that they reference. You all may know people in these schools that you may want to reach out and discuss and talk to. So I wanted you to be aware of that we're going through that process. The other thing, too, is you have packages, and I think, Maureen, you have those packages that we can distribute, or they've been distributed, of the architect's proposals already. Okay, I'm not sure if Katie has that yet, but I think,
Dr. Rizzi was holding both packages.
okay.
Oh, you do have a package. Okay.
So,
I don't. I don't have one for the record to keep on file.
okay, we will get you one for a record then. We'll send that off to you. Some of the things I just wanted you to be aware of, there's really, I think when you're looking at some of these selections that the designers have put together, these proposals, to kind of review their project history and to see if it's similar to what we're looking for. To look at their resumes, because that will be important. There's no point thing here, but it's just getting to know and get yourself familiar with this. Also, look at their cover letter. Are they addressing what we talked about when we were doing the walkthrough? And important, too, is many of them have, and I'm just showing this as an example of one of the architectural firms, they discussed basically an ad renovation project or a brand new project. So each one of them has something to learn from on the proposal, and have a chance to look at that as you're going through these proposals. You'll learn a lot. It may not be the architect we have at the end, but there might be something in there, in somebody else's proposal, that we can pick up on and glean some information.
And some of them, I think, those members who are on the Stoughton members, some of them did I think you'll see a more thorough job than others, so that's part of kind of the analysis that you bring to the table when you meet on the 21st on that project approach.
So as Tim just said, the 21st is when we're going to be meeting. Tim has been more involved with the selection panel process as far as being there. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about the designer selection panel themselves.
Well, we've already talked a lot about it, so unless somebody has any questions about the designer selection panel, and they describe it in more detail in your letter that you received by email today from the MSBA.
No.
But what they'll do is the chairman of the committee will present each one of the proposals. Here's all 11 of them.
There's no way I can read that.
And they'll talk about, or he will talk about sort of the statistics in the proposal, what their staff is. He'll talk about their MBWBE, whether he thinks they have a good shot at making it, which is a mandatory requirement, is a mandatory requirement with state-funded contracts. And then he'll turn it over to one of the staff members who will talk about their current workload within the MSBA. So they'll talk about what projects they're currently working with them in design versus what projects are in construction. And then he will go around and ask people to opine on the different proposal, the proposal that's being discussed, and people can chip in their comments at that point. And he does that with all 11 of them, and then eventually, once everyone feels comfortable about their they've made their comments, he will ask you to vote 3 for your top choice, 2 for your second choice, and 1 for your third choice. And then that vote gets tallied, and that becomes the ranking. And usually they'll vote, that will vote to rank, I'm sure, in a project of this size for an interview. So the top 3 or 4, and this is something that you'll discuss at the meeting, how many are brought in for an interview. Usually it depends on how close they are in the point totals, whether they bring in 3 or 4. And that's pretty much it. Then we're excusing for 2 weeks after that.
And tentatively, if we go to interview, that's scheduled for May 5th right now is how we see it on our timeline. So, Any questions on the
Yeah,
update?
could you, I didn't, I'm sure it's in the document somewhere. What's the MBWB requirement for this
It's
project?
17,
Is it 17? Used to be 14, I think.
yeah, it's like 17, something like that, 17.
Is it a combined requirement?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. The interview is going to be on May 5th?
Thank you.
5th, yep.
I'm sorry, May 5th, if it's required, and it'll probably be because of the size of this project.
Oh, yeah, I can't see it not being.
Well, and I think everyone would want an
Yeah.
interview.
Yeah.
The interviews are very good, actually. They're very fascinating in terms of what people present on.
Who's involved in the interview?
Right. Like, as you know.
Who's involved with?
Again, it's the same
Same-
designer
same group.
selection panel.
That subgroup.
Yeah,
That's-
well, the whole
Well, the whole-
no, the whole 15
The whole committee
member
plus the
panel.
3 appointees of the town of Stoughton be there. And you can you can't be
It's open to
involved
the
with-
public.
It's open to the public. You
Yeah.
can come and see it.
How are the interviews structured? Like we did it, where we had 5 questions we asked
Yeah.
everybody, or is that what they do?
Well,
Or
they'll usually ask us at the end for Stoughton, and usually through the OPM, to give 5 topics they want to discuss.
okay, is that something we should talk about eventually?
Yeah, we should
Yeah.
definitely talk about, I don't think we need to talk about it now, but
Yeah.
eventually, yeah, definitely.
Okay.
It's just,
Yeah.
just the final 3, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or 4?
Well, final 3 or 4, yeah, it depends. I mean, I guess maybe
Well,
we
if you have to
should,
rate 2, 3, and 1,
That's got to be tough.
how in the hell can they come up with 4?
well, because it's a point, so you may end, all 11 will get some, well, maybe not, but usually everybody gets,
Some
6 of them will get some point distribution, yeah. So you'll get a somebody will have 25 points, somebody will have 3 points, or like that.
tie, basically.
Now, do you participate, or you a voting member too?
No, that's the other thing I didn't say. They will usually ask that the OPM will sort of introduce the project before the chairman speaks. But that's really just to talk more about the statistics around the project.
And then you turn in your reference check?
The
or
reference
did you-
checks will be a week prior. We've already submitted all the designer selection submissions. And the matrix, similar to what you have here. The only thing, the large sheet is the only thing that I'm working on right now that I have to get to them. Any other questions?
The criteria in which everybody is judged, is there any set rules? I mean, what criteria? I read the RFS, but it doesn't really, just says, you've done this stuff before, but is there any type of criteria they're looking for? Would they prefer an architect that was closer to the project versus being in Connecticut, or?
So in the package that was sent out, they give you the sort of things you as members of the committee will look at for making like those criteria.
Yeah,
One of them is proximity to the project.
okay.
But there's, recent similar project experience, staffing. I didn't bring it
Yeah,
with me,
I have
but
a
it's
copy, and I
actually-
can give it to you, Joel, too, a copy, and I can forward a copy to the entire.
I'll wait till you forward it
But,
to
Well,
everybody.
you could maybe just say what it is.
Yeah, I can kind of go through the criteria real quickly, illustrating project-specific, quality of project designs from other projects. And this is where it gets subjective sometimes, is, you have to look at, and this is where I have to go and do the reference checks, the quality of previous documentation, how do they control budget, how do they control change management, which,
Out of the reference check.
it's part of the reference check.
Yeah.
Working relationships with subcontractors, contracts, and this is part of it, and obviously this group wouldn't get into that detail. Checking the financial stability of the firm, et cetera. So, and that's why I gave you those little criteria of looking at this and saying, okay, look at their resumes, look at their individual resumes, and look at what they look as project concept for Stoughton, I think is helpful.
Are you guys talking to school superintendents from,
Yes.
okay,
many times that's what they list as, and unfortunately, sometimes superintendents move to different locations,
What?
so it's chasing. I'm sorry.
I'm not implying.
In some situations, I have town managers, I have mayors who are not reelected, I have one doctor who is no longer with us that I had as a reference, so I'm
Chairmans of the building committee.
the chairman
Chairman
of
of
the
the
building
building
committee.
committee,
But then I have to drill down sometimes to see if I can find somebody in facilities, operations, town engineer that can help me. And that's why I'm having a little problem with some of the reference checks right now. But there's no point criteria, you know, it's that you can really go and check off right now.
like we did for the OPMs.
Well, not on the-
Well,
No, but, yeah, okay. All right.
Are you talking to contractors that they might have worked with?
in some cases, yeah. Yeah, but sometimes that can be a double-edged sword.
But some of them have OPMs that we know in the business that we would check with too. So I think I mentioned, you know, they want you to come to the meeting, and we're going to talk more about this in the working group tomorrow when we have Katie there. But, you know, they want you to come with your own thoughts about these. And you don't have to follow those criteria. They're just suggestion, those criteria. You don't rate anything by them. So you can come with your own thoughts about it.
I think if you get a feel when you start to see these proposals of who you think are the strongest, and then, as I said to you, Dr. Rizzi and Michael, you may have a counterpart in another town that you may want to talk to. So,
Several I recognize right away.
so.
Did you guys see any MEP people that you've never seen before or worked with before? Or even heard of before?
No one that I would say is a red flag. But-
Okay, that's, I guess that was a good way of
But
putting
there
it.
definitely is some that are more
Adept at this than others.
Well, there's some that are more, more prominent or common or do more of this
Right.
work than others.
Yes.
And our job is trying not to be biased too when we're doing these reference checks. So where I might have a bad experience on one project, I do check with other projects to see if that particular subconsultant.
Yeah, Maureen and I have had some interesting experiences with some of these guys.
Well, and that's important for all of us to know, I think.
I
Within
would
the
suggest like tomorrow
working group.
when the whole
Yeah, that'll
three
be
of you are
fine,
there,
sure.
you should raise those issues.
Because those situations do come up, and it's important that we do know that you had a bad experience in the town of Stoughton with a particular subconsultant.
And so
Or if you had
we
good-
were okay in the
Good,
town
yeah.
of Stoughton. Some other towns that Maureen and I have worked in, it's been interesting.
So is there anything that you've hit yet?
Pardon me?
Is there anything that you've hit yet that sends flags up?
No.
Well, I mean, in my opinion, and there's definitely two tiers of firms, firms that I think are, I mean, obviously getting down is really going to be the call of the three members, but there's some firms that I think,
Can do it, and some can't.
some that I think would be better and some that I don't. I think all of them probably could do it, but getting the likelihood of the success ratio is
Right.
more what we look for. And I think that there's definitely a group there that I would say there's some that I would just didn't put the effort into this proposal that would lead you to think comfortably that that they're that engaged in it right now, and others did, and I thought so. I think, tomorrow, we will probably, with all three members, we can sort of discuss some of those.
Good.
Does anyone have any other questions, though, on the design of selection? I want to answer any questions, but there's not a lot we can do about it because it really is going to, they want the three members to sort of come to it organically.
I do just want to emphasize, now that we're in this process, it's not the selection committee not to go and reach out to those designers. And that's part of the rules, okay?
Yeah. Yeah, that's important, obviously.
Right.
Or anyone else from the district.
But the references, you can.
But you can't call up, they can't call up like what designer and say, look,
Explain this or anything.
explain this, what does this mean? Yeah.
Right.
Could I just make, in the future, this not purple.
Yes, I know.
It's
He's
beautiful.
been advised.
Yes,
I-
twice.
I will take care of that tomorrow.
One of my favorite colors.
I'll clear it up
But
so you
it's-
can read it a little bit.
You have to be under 20 to be able to read that
I
document.
think that was the one that everybody wanted to read.
Or under 30.
That's true. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah, just black and white, I think, would work.
At least I did.
Yeah, these guys are good.
Purple's bad, and then the eyes are bad.
Well, the blue's barely legible.
Yeah, and black and
Stick
white
with the
works.
pastels, though.
Okay.
Well, probably, actually, what the color coding usually is just to show
yeah.
which are MBWB, so people can see the
Well, this
distribution.
is just to
tell you later.
basically separate it out.
Yeah.
All right, if there's no questions, on that public outreach, back to Tim.
Yeah, so it's only on the topic that I thought we would want to start thinking about and maybe discuss in more detail here is a community forum, a kickoff meeting, because there's some planning involved in that, and there's usually the idea is to have, you need some time to get it together and give people advance notice about it. So,
We also thinking about a website, possibly?
well, the website is already,
Yeah, the website's in the works, and I've been in touch with Jean Ostrov.
Okay. Because the only reason I asked that is I've had a half a dozen calls.
Okay. Yeah, the plan was to roll
Asking
it out
questions.
once the architect is on board, just so that we have a little content to
And
put on there.
I'll answer questions, but I don't want to answer questions on my own.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather just say, if you have questions,
Go to the website.
go here,
Yeah, absolutely.
and then hopefully they'll get answered, rather than, yes.
what kind of question? I'm just curious.
Where are you putting it?
Oh, those-
Thinking of selling my house. I got land. You want to buy it? Yeah. Yeah. Where are the parcels? How big is this building?
I would like to say.
Are you combining the middle school with this building? I'm like, what the? And I feel like, and this is like 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, oh, wow.
So one of the things that is good to get, though, is as you get those questions, is just to record them, so we do frequently ask questions if a question comes up.
Again, it was at 6 o'clock in the morning.
You're not recording any of your
Yeah.
questions. Right.
Number one, I'm not recording your question, and I'm not going to record my answer. So, yeah.
I'd like to
Yeah,
take
right.
the opportunity to say that I did see the public interview with TJ and Tim. And of course, it was fabulous. I saw it on television. And it was very good. You guys really pinned it on. I watched it 3 times, and I fell asleep only twice. So,
Well, I think the
very
plan
good.
is to do another follow-up once the architect is on.
but it was
board.
good. It was very informative. I thought it went out very well.
Yeah.
Came out very well.
So just to touch on both of those points, I do have the video on there as a presentation, and every, as you guys,
On the website.
everything that goes up, I'll put the links right on there.
Oh, great.
And then to Joel's point, any questions that you don't have answers for that you get, we do have a contact us a questions page on the website. So
Oh.
once it is up,
Well, yeah.
there's an email that they just click a link and send
Yeah.
an email.
Well, that's basically what I need is the website, so I
Yeah.
can say, go here, and hopefully it'll answer your questions, or
Call up
Tells
TJ.
you where to go, yeah.
or if there's some place where they can write in a question,
Yeah,
or
they
Like
can.
a word,
You know,
call up
That's the whole
TJ.
point.
Here's his
Right,
number.
put it in there,
Exactly,
go to
so-
Tom and
Yeah.
log his inbox.
exactly. Let him get the 6 o'clock.
5 or 10 minutes at town meeting, what do you think?
I think that'd be great.
Yeah, what an audience to have. So our town meeting's coming up.
Yeah.
First Tuesday. We've got 168 there, 168
In theory.
representatives of the I heard the latest count's 161. And those are the people
Really?
that are talking. Interesting, definitely.
So
But it'd be great.
when is the town meeting?
So we,
Reach out.
first Tuesday in May, but we
First
wouldn't
Tuesday
have the
in May.
designer on board by then.
It'd be the first Monday in May.
Monday and Wednesday.
It would be the day before before the interviews are scheduled, but our town meeting runs until almost 2:30. We have plenty of time.
You got lots of time.
Almost.
Limit it to 5 nights, and that's it. Get her done. I don't know,
No, his mic is not
it's
on.
very, where it's gonna stay.
So we'll get,
I don't think your mic is on, Mike.
we'll get about a third of it done.
Right.
After 5.
Wednesday for the first 3 weeks.
So,
It doesn't have to be first.
I mean, I think the big thing for town meeting is to hear about how many opportunities there will be for public input, as much as anything. And that's why I do think, before summer comes, we should probably set a date for a major community forum that we can get advertised, that people will come to. Maybe a town meeting say that it's set up for, later in May or early June.
We need to consider the timing. Number one, if we're going to use the auditorium is now booked from now and through until the end of school, especially in the evenings. So a Saturday might be a better consideration.
Well, Saturday mornings are a good time usually.
Is
Because there's usually, these, and it may not be an auditorium type thing, it may be more of a
Well, like-
cafeteria breakout thing
Right.
where you get people moving in different.
Yeah.
You'll be competing with the SRA is planning on holding a community forum in June sometime. So you'll be competing against that.
What is the SRA again?
Soda Redevelopment Authority.
Okay, yeah.
But
Well-
we could do something, if we did it on Saturday, we could almost do two on the same day. In other words, like one at 9 and one at 11 type of thing.
Two, you mean one for SRA and one for the
No,
school?
no.
Oh, oh.
The schools twice in a row. In other words, do the same program, but one right after the other, so that if you can't get there at 9, maybe you can get there at 11.
Oh, yeah.
Saturday's soccer games. And
Well,
you're going to
soccer
want those
usually
folks.
would end by certain.
I don't think people would want to give up their weekend. I'm just, and with people with children and who are in school who are really, I just can't say it.
All I can say is that traffic study, two different consulting groups as well attended on Saturday.
Yeah.
Yeah,
In the middle
because
of
the
the
same
winter.
applies at night. People don't want to usually give up their night, especially if they have kids. A lot of the group I think we're trying to get to talk to are the younger parents that have the kids that would be coming through to the school. So, and some of them, what we've seen successful in the past is you set up a babysitting room or students can volunteer and
Yeah, all right.
We'll have
So
to
it-
do Corey's.
yeah, geez, yeah.
Well, I've passed the number of those, fortunately.
So you say you want to track the parents that have young children. You also want to track the grandparents and
Oh, sure, yeah. Yeah.
Voting
Yeah.
count.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
you should do a roadshow at the Council on Aging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and if you're going to do a Saturday forum, again, the spring soccer season extends well into June, and they play their games on Saturday mornings. And so if you want those people who have kids that are in the upper levels of the elementary schools and in the middle school, you're going to have to get them in the afternoon and not the morning, because those games start at 8 o'clock, and they usually run until noon or 1 o'clock.
And they're well attended.
Yes.
I thought you were advocating that they go to the games.
Actually, it wouldn't be bad to set up a little table at the games to pass out literature. That's a good idea, I think. That's all part of public outreach. You're going to get the people you want, because those are the people that are going to have kids that are going to go to that high school.
And the baseball field.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, PTO, PTA meetings as well, yeah.
So sometimes it's good to have a subcommittee work on this topic. We can talk about it at the working group, but if people here wanted to form a subcommittee, that could, because it's more than just this community work. It's all the sort of communication, and it really isn't. This workshop, I think, is best done to try to get feedback from people about what they're looking for in terms of you get as much feedback, so you set it up in a way that there's breakouts and you come together. And the architect is usually the one who runs it, the way they've done a lot of these, and that's how they're looking for this information. But to these discussions about whether the time's the right time,
I know
probably
some people
requires
who
more
are
debate.
expert in these sorts of questions in town, and they're not sitting in this room. And I would love to be able to reach out to a few of them. One who used to sit on the school committee was fabulous at outreach, and she'd be the first person I would call, and she has an active interest in this project. And I think she'd be dynamite in this, but I bring it up because I don't want to limit it to the people in this room who
Yeah, sure.
might not be very good at it.
Yeah.
So,
I do have a a group that I started this year, which is the All-District Council, which is an advisory group that's very similar, modeled on the school councils, but it's for the district. And we've had a meeting, it was very successful, and what I did was I had the meeting in 4 sections so that people could come on an afternoon or an evening and have 2 different days to choose from. So that got a larger group. Reconvening that group shortly. I have to talk to Mary and see what day we picked, but I've invited them all back specifically to talk to me about this project. So I'm hoping that from that group there would be people who would be interested in participating in the outreach, and that we would begin to get feedback from them, but that those people, they're all interested in the school system and they have children, or they're just interested community members. So we might find some people who would be not in this room who would be very interested in being part of the outreach overall, a workshop and or anything else that we do as time goes on.
I know I wouldn't be very good at it.
Oh, and the newly constituted school committee. Great office.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? On this outreach, what do you expect to gain from it? You're just
Well-
going to get a lot of parents or people saying
Well, not just, I did,
they want, I mean, we're restricted. I mean, there's restrictions on this project, financially and architecturally. I mean, you might get a lot of people saying, I want you to put this in, I want to.
well, the way
I don't wanna
this,
say it, but I don't know if it's going to get you anywhere. I guess
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying when it comes to the projects. Yes, you want people to say their piece about something, but when it comes down to it, the building can only be so big, there's only so much money. The architect can only do so much. I guess I don't know what you're going to gain from I understand you have to have it. I just think more or less the information has to be put out there. I think the show that you did with TJ, I think it was great. I thought people got educated. But you're going to everybody start throwing their 2 cents worth into something. We don't even know what we're doing yet. We don't even know what we're doing. We don't even know if it's a new school or renovation. We haven't even talked about it. We can't talk about it. So I guess I'm just thinking that you're going to get a lot of a lot of questions, and I don't know if it's going to advance. You have a panel here. You have your school people. They know what the school needs. They know what the school needs. The state says you need science labs. They have to be X amount of square feet. You need X amount of square feet per person. You need all this. A regular person just throwing that in there, whether I don't care if they're an architect or not, or a construction worker, we have certain requirements that we have to meet for this project. So somebody from the outside saying, why don't you have a daycare in the school, or just say
No,
something like that.
That wasn't what I had in mind. I had in mind for people who would be broadcasting the good work that we're doing to the
Right,
community, that we don't, I mean, we only have so many voices and so many.
Okay, I thought these were more, you wanted input from.
I
I
was
think it's a
Well, no,
multi-pronged approach.
yeah,
I mean, I
yeah.
think the people are going to want to have some element of input, but
Yeah.
in that input process, you are guiding them and understanding about what the constraints are.
You're also going to eventually ask them to vote for the project.
Right.
Right.
And you also,
you
to
have to
break
get the
down, like,
information
there could be a
out
lot of
there.
myths out there, misinformation if we're not
Right.
Right.
communicating. So by being as active as possible on many different fronts, you're hoping to minimize anyone who's out there that spreading information that really might not be the accurate information.
Well,
So
I got-
think it's a two-way dialogue.
I got to agree with Roberta on one thing. In the past projects that I've been on, when we did our community outreach, it was normally after the feasibility study was done. We were able to present it, people were able to look at it, and then we got input because, as Roberta said, the feasibility study says this is what we can do and what we can't do, and if we want to do this, it's going to cost this amount of money. And that's where I think that the community outreach is really going to come in, my own personal feeling. And I've done it before, and I've seen it where parents will come and say, well, did you consider that? Oh, yeah, we considered that. This is what it costs, so on and so on. Did you consider this? And But if you bring them in too early, I don't know, it doesn't feel quite right, I guess is what I'm saying.
But even if we're just communicating the timelines at this point, so that people know where we are, what the next steps are.
That I agree with.
Yeah, and so discussing specifics about the project are premature, and you can say that right up front.
Right.
So, in the
we don't
next
have-
phase, we'll be seeking input from the, folks and things of that nature, but transparency what was promised here.
Yes.
And people are skeptical about this thing.
Right.
So the more communication you can have about it, the better. Input will happen at some point. This is not the time. Let us tell you where we are and how we're progressing and what next steps are, et cetera. And here's how you can make contact if you have, some very specific offline things that you want to ask about.
And because we're pushed up against
Right.
the summer vacation.
Right. And here's the website.
So that's basically the information we get between now and summer, and then in the fall, we'll be back to see you with an expanded view.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think the outreach is important. Plus, you start building an audience.
Well, and I
People that are
think
interested
in the projects I've been involved in the town I lived in, we successfully got through 7 major capital projects. We started from day one.
Right.
Just say, it's out here, it's coming, whether it's a little pamphlet, and this was before all the electronic media was out there to advertise in. They was knocking on doors, just so people knew. So they thought, well, this isn't a bad idea. And they weren't there to say, I want this, I want that. It was more, this is good. They care about us. We know about the project, and they're going to spend our money wisely. And that was a big chunk of change when we did all our big projects in Mansfield. And then just last year, we did a project that went to town meeting. It was a DPW building that was done under the radar. It crashed and burned at town meeting because they said, where were the public meetings? How come nobody ever talked to us? And it was the first time anything ever went down so quickly because Mansfield does spend money on capital projects. And they said, we should have done this differently. We should have involved people in the beginning because they thought there was no transparency. It was just a backdoor deal and it was being snuck in. So I would say, I think the earlier the better. They don't have to get a lot of information, but hey, look, it's out there. The website's going to be out. We'll keep you up so when you're on vacation, this is what we expect to do over the summer.
Oh, that's
Come
good.
the fall, we'll have more.
Is there a way to do the community outreach, but to just be the first phase is more informative and
Yeah.
then maybe gather the input, or?
Well, I mean, one of the things that we've seen on projects that make, one of the, we've fortunately, knock on wood, been only involved in successful projects. But one of the things that I've seen other projects suffer from sometimes is the perception is people saying, you didn't ask our opinion.
Right.
The decisions were made top down, and so if you just go to public meetings and say, here's what we've decided, here's what we've decided, here's what we've decided, here's what and you don't engage the people to give you feedback and build it up sort of bottom up versus top down, so that you guys make decisions based on what you're hearing,
Right.
whether it's in your own community or whether it's at these meetings. They're very effective in getting, and the architects and frankly, I think, do a very good job of distilling these things into very basic things. Certainly people need to know there are ground rules. I mean, there are limitations on what can be done for a number of fiscal reasons, and the MSBA is a huge bracket on all of this. But to say to people, to get them excited to talk about what does education mean in Stoughton, to get them excited to talk about what does, physically at the high school, we're talking about, not the broader system. What would people like to see in a school? Getting that kind of feedback is really helpful because it creates that bottom-up sort of feeling that we start to own the school, and that is how you sort of stop that kind of point that you guys made these decisions and now you communicated them to us. Really, you want to communicate, I think, as much as you can. You want to make decisions based on what you feel is the community's desire. Not just because that'll make it more successful, likelihood of being successful at the ballot, but also, it should reflect the community. So, I would envision this meeting would be more than just saying here, there would be an element of here's the timeline, here's the rules, here's what we're operating under, so people do understand that. But it is also a moment, an hour or so of breakout where people can go to different, if they're really interested in educational currents at high schools, for instance, they might hear a discussion or have a place to talk about that. If they're really interested in what does the building look like, what does the physical attributes of it. If they're interested in, there are different ways you can structure it that the architect would work with the district on how to do that. So that is, I think you create a kind of energy around the project that begins to build up, and at the next successive one where you now are talking more specifically because you've got actually taken their input, you've brought it now to them and said, we heard you, here's sort of how we addressed some of these things. I mean, you definitely have to make sure people understand the expectations. You can't have, if you know, and I don't know, let's say 70 or 80 or 100 people show up and you get 100 different opinions, they're all going to have to be distilled into it. But that's kind of what you hire professionals for, to kind of distill that feedback into something that you can go back as a committee and say, this is what we heard 2 months ago when we met with you guys, or with the community. So I would, you know, I mean, I would strongly recommend that you've committed to transparency. I know that's an important, and I believe that's a practically good philosophy to have. I would make this as much open about getting feedback as possible.
But, you know, to that end, one of the things that this committee felt strongly about was your ability at public outreach. And that was kind of a deciding criteria for a lot of folks. So that was important. And somebody else said it. Staying ahead of the misinformation is as important as getting information out. You know, people are just speculating, and we need to stop that or get ahead of it. And Michael had a great idea about maybe building an advisory group that runs in parallel. They don't have a voting position per se, but at least there's another group of fingers out there that has the right information, that is feeling a part of the project and the energy, and continues to build that. So
There's a lot of passive stuff that you can do for outreach. I mean, people on Facebook chatter about everything. And
oh, stop.
just through that medium alone, you could probably pick up about 50 new people who would never know we'd had a meeting today if they had an interest in it.
Have we got a Facebook page yet?
I think someone has, one
Oh,
of the,
do we?
yeah, there's one that's, well, I think it's just the Stoughton High School. Stoughton Public Schools, yeah, and I think they were going to advertise.
Should link it to Stoughton enthusiasts.
But we probably should get a Facebook page that
Just for the
is
project?
Stoughton High
Yeah,
School
just for
Building
this.
Project.
I think that's a good
People can
idea.
use it as a
On
forum.
a website, right.
And a website, right? Well, we've got, whatever we name one, we got to name them both the same thing so that, you know, whatever the, yeah. Right.
So, we're done with that.
What, a Facebook page?
Yeah.
Thank you guys. You're going to stock it with
Yeah,
all the
except
information.
the information will be generated at a local level, so
Yeah.
we should talk with Gene about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Even if we kind of help with how it gets, the information, it works from a local level.
Community relations person.
Okay.
Part-time.
Eventually, the website will have a camera on the project. There'll be weekly updates as part of the web, and and part of maybe the Facebook page too. So,
I
mean, if it's-
nominate Joel to respond to all the
and
inquiries at the website.
anything, before 7 o'clock, I'll be more than happy.
Well, this is a topic that we're going to talk more about tomorrow and as well.
As soon as I picked it
And
up, I
set
was
up
like, what am I doing?
Why did I
You
do
know,
that?
a more sort of firm approach to it and
Did I-
report back to this committee.
just to piggyback on what
Nothing
Tim
ever
was saying, I
happens
think the
between-
important thing though is that
Good ever happens at those hours.
as much as we educate, they understand the constraints. So
exactly.
they feel like when we say no, they know there's a reason why we're saying no, because they were educated about the process. So
Yep.
That's all.
Okay.
Well,
And they can tell
or
two
we are
people,
not
who
saying
tell
no,
two
but
people,
it's,
who tell two people.
if we say yes, it's going to cost you X number of dollars more. So
Yep.
you can say no, type of thing.
Tim, is that
Exactly.
something we're going to drop now into the working group?
Yes, and I think what we'll do is we'll talk about it tomorrow, and I think set up a group of people to come back to this committee and say, here's what we're thinking,
Okay.
and enough time for you guys to give your feedback on it.
Good.
We'll have a proposal at the next building committee meeting.
Well, and that would be second Tuesday.
Right.
So if you're looking for, your timeline on the forum was.
I was thinking if we could just even set a, I mean,
Tuesday or Thursday.
I'm thinking that we need to have the forum before the summer, before people break for the summer. So it could be as late as, early June.
Wednesdays.
And it probably does need to be a morning and an evening and an afternoon, or give some option for people to come to it. So if people were okay, at least in this room, about the idea of having one, and we come back to you with sort of what that actually looks like at the next meeting, but we will set a date, because I think we're going to need some advance, time to set a place up and do that, so.
And the architect will be on board.
And the architect generally runs these, because they're looking for information related to the how they approach the project. So if people are generally comfortable, if we can just sort of say that we'll set up something with the working group that will be late May, early June, and we will come back to the building committee with what that looks like for final approval by the building committee on, exactly how it sort of lays out. But that gives us the ability to set up a date prior to the next building committee
Okay,
meeting.
good. Good. Some invoices to pay. Let's see,
I think in your electronic package, I sent out a vendor invoice
Yep.
submission, and I revised it. Thank you, Joe, for that. The catch on the, pardon me?
Did you bring an original signed up for paying?
Have this for,
Okay, so,
Remember to put the line in for the chair to sign?
did not.
oh! Bummer.
We can draw another line.
Thank you, Mike.
That'll spell your cash flow off a little bit.
so there's just one, 9977.50.
One invoice, $99.77.50 for Compass administration and services rendered.
Motion to pay that?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of paying invoice number CPM 4402, if I have that right, for $9,977.50, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous.
You did make the change on the budget?
I did make the change in the budgets that reflected on this copy here of,
Yeah, you did send out a second one, right?
I did send it out.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And on the cover sheet, it would say budget revised, says we reduced 45,000 to arrive at the $1 million budget.
Good.
So
That's the right one. Yeah.
I send this down to
Good.
CJ. I'm sorry, I will have a signing line.
We
The
have,
town manager is good at putting the line in.
Think I
Look at the
came out of
limit.
rehab, and the lines I draw.
if everybody's had a chance to review the minutes of March 11th, 2015, is there a motion to approve those?
There's an amendment, Joel picked it up.
Okay.
And hold on a second, I want to make sure you have the writing there?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's on item number 4, public outreach. It's the end of the first sentence. Should be 2 weeks, next couple of weeks. And then the second one,
The way I'm signing personally for the entire project.
half an hour interview on local access TV, introducing the OPM instead of for OPM.
Oh, okay.
And
We amended those.
you got that right.
Is there a motion approved with that amendment?
Is there another amendment? We're good?
That was it.
Okay.
So I would suggest that we approve as amended.
Motion to approve as amended.
I'll move.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm abstaining.
Actually, I'm abstaining because I wasn't here either.
With Mr. Hill and Ms. Harback abstaining.
I am as well. I wasn't here either.
Old Harding is abstaining.
Joel?
And Joel Harding.
Joe and
Yeah.
Roberta and myself.
Okay. Future agenda items. Tim?
Well, one is going to be
Community forum.
community forum.
And more than likely, we'll have the introduction of the designer to the school building committee at that time, we're hoping.
Well, we'll know who it is, or...
But it should be, the representative should be here at the next meeting.
Oh,
Reggie.
okay, all right.
Reggie pays it.
Good.
Okay.
When's the interview?
Anything else from anyone on the committee?
Second Thursday.
Is there a motion to adjourn? All those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Thank you all.
Is it week?
Second Thursday.
Thank you.
14th?